What is going on, everyone? Mike Singer and Tim Hyde with this week's Notre Dame football show on YouTube. Pod Like a Champion. If you're listening via podcast, appreciate everyone watching live, watching back, or listening via podcast. Thank you for making Tim and I a part of your day. We were off last week as I was traveling down to Florida for what I like to call a work vacation, where I go to a destination and also get some work done. So get a little best of both worlds. Yeah, I'm excited to be back. Tim, how are you doing, my friend? How's everything up in the Northeast?
Oh, we've had about 5 inches of rain the last couple, literally flooding.
Better than snow.
Better than snow, but it is. The other day we got 2 inches in one day and it was 38 degrees. I'm like, when are we going to get spring? But it's almost here. It's almost here. So really excited about that. And yeah, it's been wild. Yeah, the weather is like raining nonstop. So yeah, definitely not a nor'easter as they call it in the winter.
Yeah, one of our last videos we've posted with you on there was the one that really blew up, where you and Goolsby were talking about Buckner transferring out. So the YouTube chat's already buzzing. Joe Burrow says, "What's good, Joe Burrow? Appreciate you being live with us." Jay says, "Tim Hyde's the GOAT. He's the only reason I watch." I have a Tim Hyde.
It's my little brother. So it's always my little brother at work in California. So yeah, we're 3 hours ahead. So thanks, Brian.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I want.
I have no idea. I'm joking. Okay.
Oh, okay. So you don't know who Jay is?
No.
Well, Jay, I want the Tim Hyde poster
Oh man,
on your wall, and no, just Mr. Hyde and I. Goolsby and I are looking to have a show. You can never hold me to it 100%, but we're planning to have a show on Sunday, and we'll have a really cool guest on, a former Notre Dame player, a guy Goolsby played with, who some of his background is actually kind of interesting with the current Notre Dame news. Yeah, you'll have to stay tuned to that.
A quick tidbit: I actually coached against him. He ran for 200 yards against us in a playoff game, and one of the best football players I've ever seen live. So it's a little tidbit out there, which no one's going to figure it out. But he was a stud. He was definitely a stud in high school, and obviously at Notre Dame.
Evan Sharpley. That's an interesting guess. Evan's awesome. I've been able to interact with Evan a few times. Great dude. And Adam says, "See how many haymakers are thrown tonight." I don't know. There's one topic we have that I'm really looking forward to discussing with Tim, because his take on this.
Oh, I love it.
I have no idea what he's thinking. A lot of times, Tim and I, we always say, like, we don't, like, if Tim and I are texting, it's really just planning for a show. Like, we're like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about on our show?" Or news will break and Tim will be like, "Holy crap, Singer, did you see this?" A lot of our interactions just on the message board, where Tim says something, I'm like, "Tim, do you really believe that?" And Tim's like, "All right, Mike, let's talk about it Wednesday night." So I wanted to mention that, but also a way to plug blueandgold.com, because it's really the place to be. $29.99 to unlock premium access until the start of the football season. We're always having good deals going on. I think one of our recent deal was 4 months for $10, get you 4 months of access. So we always have stuff like that going on. But go ahead and sign up today. And yeah, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. So Tim, our first item of discussion is something that we actually have been talking about for a while privately. I don't know how much we have publicly, but when you look back, Tim, at this 2021 recruiting class, and I did talk about this in our show, our recruiting show Friday. I'm going to pull this up in a different browser, Tim, because Tyler Horka did an article on this, and I want to pull it up. He listed all of the guys in that 27-man class in the class of 2021 who have transferred out. It is quite the long list. Tim, do you remember? But for the 2021 class, I think you had just joined Blue and Gold right in the middle of the class. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I mean, you and I did the season together. So our first game was that. But
no,
okay.
2022 class.
Yeah. 2020 I started working.
Okay. So yeah, I was thinking Tyson Ford was the first recruit we covered. Okay, so you would have been covering, but here is the list.
Oh, it's crazy.
Of the 14 players, including Diggs, and this is a 27-man class. 14 have already transferred out. And this was the big COVID, like, this was the COVID-19 class where these guys couldn't take any official visits. Notre Dame had to, ask the kids to go throw the ball in the backyard and have their brother film it, to get footage. Like, that was this class. Tyler Buckner, off to Bama. Prince Colley, as of now, undecided. Kane Barong, I mean, for some part of the cycle, he was the number one tight end in the country. He's at Coastal Carolina. Corner Philip Riley's undecided. He's out of Notre Dame, of course. All these guys are. Offensive tackle Caleb Johnson's undecided. JoJo Johnson, there's a name. I think he just had a handful of practices with
Yeah.
Notre Dame before he went the grad transfer, or excuse me, the community college route. Don't say those two words. Covering Notre Dame. When I covered Mississippi State and Louisville and those schools, Colorado, I covered before. A lot of community college recruits they would take. I haven't dealt with a community college recruit in a long time. Kari G, defensive back, Georgia Tech. Logan Diggs, he transferred out. Looks like LSU is the likely home for him. Defensive end Will Schweitzer and safety Justin Walters, medical retirement. Linebacker Devin Alpue, UCLA. I want to say Notre Dame flipped him from UCLA too, which is kind of
Yep,
funny.
they did. They
Josh
did.
Bryan, Notre Dame flipped him from Colorado. He's undecided. And then quarterback Ron Paulus, the third medical retirement. So, Tim, what's just your thoughts here on this 2021 class?
Yeah, and I see, and Kia, who's obviously on his Mormon mission.
So that could be 15?
Yeah, will he come back? But I'm pretty sure he is. Aren't they recruiting his brother in
Yes.
2025, right, for
Yeah.
Hawaii? So that'd be good. And Kia is a really good special teams player. I remember seeing him. It's, you know what? It's like, oh my God, it's shock and awe, so to speak. But then you're like, going back to your point, it's that COVID. It's that crazy. It really is. It was a crazy period of, some guys Tyler Buckner didn't even have a season. So he didn't have a season. I'll go grad transfer early and just get on with my life. And then you got these guys like you're saying, like Kari Gee. I mean, some of these guys had never even visited Notre Dame other than the Zooms and the stuff that the Notre Dame people set up, which I heard was outstanding. The video presentations they did, but it was literally recruit by Zoom trying to get guys. And it's not, 2 years later, and the other thing, like when I texted you was, you throw in a coaching change. That's a little bit in there as well. You get a coaching change. So you get COVID, a coaching change. Boom, these guys are just thrown around. You get the automatic transfer. It's a massive adjustment in the last 24 hours for these guys. And some of them have taken advantage of them. And then at the same time, some of these guys have just never caught on, so to speak. And there's some names we'll probably never hear of or forget. But obviously a couple of them are, the big, four, I guess you could call it, when you go Buckner, Colley, Diggs, and Styles.
Dude, there was some
Styles on there.
This is a fascinating class. This 2021 class really is fascinating. The COVID aspect of it, Tim, is really fascinating. But then when you go through the names, you're familiar with the 1/3 rule, right? We talked about that.
The loose emoji rule all the time, where it's 1/3 are going to be Notre Dame stars. You got 1/3 are going to be your backups, your special team rocks, and then you got a third that will just never make it at Notre Dame. And I've gone back, Mike, 10 years. It's like to the point.
Yeah.
It's wild how that thing has worked.
So for this one, it looks more like a half. It's either big hits or big misses. Like, that's what it looks like. Now, someone like Diggs, I think you could probably put in the backup / special team / guy who starts the last couple of years of his career category, because he did contribute a lot to Notre Dame's first 2 years. That transfer out still just kind of leaves me scratching my head. But like, Blake Fisher's a big hit, right? And we're going from the top of the rankings to the bottom here. Blake Fisher, I think what you could say is a big hit. Spindler, to be determined, kind of in that middle category. Yes. Styles, bust. I think
that second tier, so to speak, and then transfers out. Yep.
Tyler Buckner,
same thing. A little bit of starter, backup, transfers out. It's look at these guys, top 100 guys. Isn't this crazy?
I think you have to call Styles, Buckner, and Colley a bust. I think maybe that's harsh. Maybe that's harsh. And it's not like, I don't think they're good, but think about how hyped up those three guys were
Sure.
and the jury's out on Spindler. You know,
Well, that's
I
your
like
top. I mean, you go back to the blue chip. We always talk about this. That's the other thing. This class is only 48% top heavy.
yeah,
Five guys in the top 100. Colsey's right on that tip right there. Rubio is close. So you really got some top heavy, nationally ranked dudes, and then you got the bottom of the guys that have just all fallen off.
yeah,
So you got 50% basically make it, 50% don't, which goes right back to that blue chip,
yeah,
which is fascinating. But
yeah,
the Styles, Buckler, Prince Colley, man, it's like, man, it's just three really good athletes,
yeah,
really good football players that have played football. Colley is just always on that tip, can never get there. Styles was a second leading receiver behind Michael Mayer last year, which is just wild. So
I think
it's a crazy class, Mike.
if we're not in this transfer portal era, you got to think some of these guys stick it out more. And the transfer portal slash the one-time transfer rule, because you could always transfer,
Mhm.
right? The transfer portal is not like that crazy of an invention. It's the one-time transfer rule that I can just leave and not have to sit out a year. So I just think with some of these guys, they stick around, then it works out for them in the long run. But you never know. But yeah,
And real quick on Diggs. Diggs is the interesting one because running backs, if you're, the guy started, half the season last year he started. So I always hear, well, he was a backup. He started half the season. He had
yeah,
1,000 total yards. Diggs was, that's the other thing. Chris Tyree started 4 or 5 games as well. I think Audric Estime only started 1 game. So he wasn't even a starter all year. So it was the other 2 rotating, and they always did different packages and whatnot. So it's all semantics, but
yeah,
Diggs leaving because I always thought, he never really wanted to be at Notre Dame. I always felt like he was always on the tip of leaving. So my opinion, especially going through this spring, I know he only did 1 practice and then he held out, quote unquote, with the hamstring injury. But it's like, thought he was just going to play this year and be done. Be Stanford, don't play in the bowl game, go to the NFL. That's what I fully expected. So he's probably going to do that anyway, wherever he goes, is play 1 year and leave. So leaving Notre Dame was that one was interesting. I get the other ones. I do understand the other
yeah.
ones.
I have the Snapchat. Excuse me, the snap counts. I just said Snapchat. My millennial is
Snapchat.
showing. Audric Estime, 372 snaps per PFF.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Tyree, 309. Logan Diggs, 209.
And Diggs didn't suit up for one of the game with the Cal
Yeah,
game.
so he played in 12 of the
Yeah,
13.
yeah. You got to really think the first 3 games he was banged up. Ohio State coming back, Marshall, and then he didn't even play against Cal to get him
Yeah,
healthy. So he got rolling afterwards. But
yeah. I wanna go through the rest of this class real
sure,
quick, Tim.
sure.
Colsey and Rubio, I think, are kind of in that middle category, like,
Yes,
remains to be seen,
I
good
agree.
depth pieces. Estime's a star.
He'll be in the
Kane
NFL.
Wrong, bust. Philip Riley, bust. Caleb Johnson, bust. Jaden Thomas, star in that
Well,
upper
he'll be in that
tier.
first group because he's going to be a multi-year starter. Yes.
Yeah, now here's why I don't think Joe Alt is a superstar. Psych.
By the way, he's getting the kiss of death because they had Hamilton preseason top 5, Mayer preseason top 10. They all dropped. Alt's like projected to be number 2 or 3. That means he's going 28 next year. So, yeah, you heard it here first.
Yeah, we'll talk. Maybe we'll fit in some Kyle Hamilton talk. Somebody remind me in the chat later. Mitch Evans, I think, is trending towards a
Stay
top
healthy.
player in the
Yep.
class.
Stay healthy, and he'll be
Yeah,
in that first tier.
yeah.
Yep.
JoJo Johnson, bust. Tucker's in that middle category. Kari
Yeah.
G, busted. Logan Diggs, again, I put him in the middle
Yeah.
category. Schweitzer and Walters, unfortunately, ended their career medically. Kanu Kia remains to be seen. He played a season at Notre Dame and actually kind of looked good.
Yes.
Pat Coogan, who knows? Ryan Barnes, middle category, I would say. Devin Alpew never played. Anye, Jason Anye looks like he could be a big time player. He looked
He's got
pretty good in the spring game.
3
So
years left if he uses them all. So that he definitely could fall into that first tier because I, I'm expecting him to play a ton this year.
yeah,
Obviously, from what we saw in the spring.
yeah. So yeah, a lot of these guys are kind of like, who knows? Like their position hasn't really been determined yet. And then yeah, Josh Bryan and Ron Paulus never played it down to my knowledge. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at now, but obviously it's something you want to look at after all those guys'
Yeah.
careers at Notre Dame are over. But yeah, always an interesting exercise. The great loose emoji. in his 1/3 rule. Always interesting. All right, let's move along, Tim. I'm going to do a little bit of a reset on the quarterback board. So we had that video where, you know, Goolsby, you and I reacted to the Buckner thing. I think we're all a little emotional, but we're going to not focus on Tyler Buckner for this part. I'm sure we will get into him later in the show at some point. But I want to do a little bit of a reset on the quarterback spot, right? All right, Buckner's gone. What does Notre Dame still have? Tim, how about this? The great loose emoji who we were just talking about, he did a study in 2020, I believe it was, and it was something like 23 quarterbacks transferred out of Notre Dame in a 46-year period. So it was literally every other year, right?
I have that somewhere. Yep.
Yeah, if you include, and I don't know if he's including like medical retirement, for Notre Dame, you have 3 in the past 4 months. Pine, Buckner, and Paulus. So that kind of
was Jurkovec on that list that he did before he passed?
Jurkovec would have been on that list. Yep. Man, I just wish Lou were with us.
It's like, it's crazy.
Imagine Lou Emoji being able to talk about this and put all this in perspective.
With the transfer portal, yes, he would love this.
I don't know about that, but he would love, or I think we would all love his thoughts. We can say that. But so that's an interesting side note. But yeah, Tim, just thoughts on this quarterback position, because there's just 3 scholarship quarterbacks now. You go from, what is it, 6, 7, something crazy, to 3.
Well, that was what Montana back in the 70s when they had, like, yeah, exactly, 6, 7 quarterbacks on the roster, and you just rotate them around. But you have 3, and I think that's kind of the new norm. I mean, that's the way I kind of look at this. Is the new normal is going to be 3, and we had I mean, even if Buckner, this going back to the Buckner old Hartman, even, my whole thing was always like, well, let's just play the guys. And if someone, I know Buckner, everyone's worried if he gets hurt. Okay, well, he gets hurt, play. You got Minchie and Angeli. See what they could do for 24 before CJ Carr gets here. And now it's Hartman. Well, if Hartman gets dinged up, we're in the same scenario as I feel like we were on the Gator Bowl. I literally, when the Buckner news hit, I'm like, all right, we're back to 3, which was the plan all along, so to speak, after Pine left. But yeah, it's, people get nervous because obviously, if Hartman gets hurt, but you still recruited these guys. You still have Steve Angeli. You still have, Minchie. Play them. That's what you got to do. You got to play these guys, see how it goes. Because all of a sudden now, Mike, if you're like, I've heard rumblings like, well, we got to find a grad transfer. Well, what's he going to do? He's going to come sit on the bench and hang out and be the backup, which does what? Goes back to this entire conversation once again with Hartman coming along is reps for these guys. So if you have a backup quarterback, let's say they get some 5th years with the Cincinnati guy, correct? Someone I heard recently, I haven't followed him, I have no idea. The Cincy guy's in the portal. Well, Gino coached him. If he comes to Notre Dame, well, you're right back to where we were with Hartman, Buckner, meaning Angeli, Minchie are on the scout team. So how much reps are they getting preparing for 2024 when Sam Hartman's gone? So I like it, Mike, having 3. I'm excited because I think we're going to see one of those 2 young guys play this year, especially in some of these games. We're expecting Notre Dame to handle business early.
There's a fine line, Tim, between win now, but you also need to, maybe fine line's not the word, but there's that balance between win now, do everything we can to win now in 2023. And this has been a topic of discussion for months, now about, 23 versus 24. But as a Notre Dame coach, you have to do both. Your job's on the line every year. If you just crap the bed, you might not have, a name plate on your door for the next year. So yeah, I like it, Tim. I post on our blue and gold message board. I think it's okay to say on our YouTube channel as well. Don't expect Notre Dame to go get a transfer quarterback. I think Notre Dame I had heard like they were kind of sniffing around, just seeing what was in the portal. And as I've said so many times before, Tim, Notre Dame is always looking to improve its roster. They're always going to look in the portal. So that's not really anything. It's like, whoa, they're looking to take 2 guys. Like, no, not really. But I do think they're sniffing around from my understand. Like, hey, what is there? Do we want to add another depth piece? But that's not what they're going to do. So they're going to roll with Hartman and Jelly and Minchie. And then they have a walk-on quarterback as well, number 16, who you'll see in some of these clips for folks watching on YouTube. So, and look, if your starting quarterback gets hurt, it's like, man, now you're relying on Angeli. But I'm pretty sure, Tim, this is just a situation at most every Power 5 school, right?
Yes.
Your QB2 is probably going to transfer out, right? The guy who doesn't win the job, especially if he's like a junior, senior guy, he's probably out to go play right away. So I think at a lot of top places, QB2 is a freshman or sophomore. And hopefully not. I think it's probably like senior or graduate students, QB1, QB2 is a sophomore, and QB3 is a freshman. I think that's just kind of how it goes in a lot of schools now.
I agree. I mean, look at Clemson, correct? Clemson was last year with DJ and they had Klebnik. Look at Ohio State. Look at even Alabama, where Tyler Buckner's gone, they have 4 now. One of those guys is going to probably be gone when the summer window opens, correct? If there is another one, I can't keep track of all these transfer dates, but you would have to assume one of those guys are going to be gone. They'll be down to 3. It's the nature of the beast. I saw someone just posted in the chat, well, they need a guy with experience. Well, you don't get experience unless you play, which goes back to the whole point of just eventually, right? Someone's got to play, Mike. And if you go get a transfer now, then who's to say Angeli's like, are you kidding me? I could be the number 2 guy and you're just pulling the plug on me as a sophomore. How am I going to be ready to go as a junior when this thing's fully open? And it goes back to the conversation, does Notre Dame have to go out and get a transfer quarterback to be the starter in 2024, Mike? And if you do that, Mike, darn well, someone's gone. And Jelly, Minchie, Carr won't because he's a freshman. He's going to be there in January. But one of those others are going to be gone, which you're right back to 3 again. So I think 3 is the number. And if you get 4, it's a luxury.
How about just this username? Can't hide speed.
That's a first. I love it. Thank you. And
Tim, you went from high school coach in Southern California to this just Notre Dame sensation.
I love it. Yeah. Posters, and now I got names named after me. Thank you.
Welcome to being a small time celebrity or small time media personality, whatever you want to say. Just wait until someone notices.
No, ever since I said that SEC speed, that's been the moniker now with me. So I'll take it.
But I think everyone, like, you get what the guy's saying.
Yeah.
Right. And when Notre Dame plays Alabama, Notre Dame gets curb stomped in recent years, right? Go back the past decade. I think that's just what Tim's kind of.
That's what I'm saying. Because whenever I say SEC speed, I just think of a bubble and making 2 guys move and they're gone. That's the PTSD from watching Alabama games. So I still have that vision.
Derek drops the 2 and says, "And in Jelly, we trust." Derek, appreciate you joining us, man. Listen, I think the kid's gonna surprise. I think he's gonna surprise. Maybe not surprise folks who are regular viewers of the show because they've been hearing me talk about Steve. But I really do believe in him.
That's going to be fun. I mean, Hartman obviously is 6 year. We already know what he's going to do. He's got 1,000 games under his belt. He's going to play. Come on. I mean, we already know that. This battle for 2. I mean, seriously, that is going to be a true battle because these guys have to know if Sam Hartman, I always like to say his belt buckle breaks and he's out of play, who's going in to finish the drive, finish the series, whatever it is. So this battle for 2 is going to be real. It's going to be fierce because they need to know who it is. Navy's coming blitzing 15 guys like they did last year, and they ding Hartman. Someone's got to be ready to go. So the battle for 2 is going to be awesome to follow once camp hits.
Yeah, give me an Angeli.
That's going to be fun.
I'll take Angeli over Minchie just as maybe not as confidently as Hartman over Buckner, but somewhat close to. And I don't know, I'm trying to disrespect Kenny Minchie. I just think Angeli's like really heard he had a really good spring.
Older, Minchie probably got more reps with the walk-ons like Angeli did last year, correct? So it's a
Tim,
system of movement, so
I'm
to speak.
curious what you think on this. Let's say it's, Clemson week, or it doesn't matter, just some week during the football season. How often do you think the reps are, or the QB2 is getting reps? Like, do you think he's getting any reps during game week?
Oh yeah, I mean we everywhere I've ever coached, you always rep the twos. I mean, you're not giving. I mean, you always
QB2.
rep, sure. I mean, the second string quarterback,
Yeah.
always, always. There wasn't a day go by that where, yeah, I mean, we're always giving him some reps. You have to let that guy throw. You got to let him hand off. You got.
Well, I'm not sure how much it happens at Notre Dame though. So
Well, then, yeah, then that's interesting because you always. I don't know. Maybe it's just. I always like to use the Marine in me, man. You always got to have a contingency plan, and that's
yeah,
probably. I grew up following. When I was a young coach, my favorite guys are obviously Holtz, and I loved Bill Parcells. And Parcells always talked about
yeah.
contingency.
I
So
just
that's
heard
interesting.
I just heard through the grapevine that it doesn't happen as much as you think. Happens, but not as much as you think. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm not
it's just
saying.
one of those things that I think we just kind of come up with in our mind, that it's like, oh yeah, this quarterback gets 100 reps and this quarterback, it's like, no, they can only practice for so long and they have a lot
Mhm.
of install to get through. And I think we just kind of romanticize how much the backups really get to action. Spring ball is for the young guys. And then, in fall, I mean, they don't, it's a lot of sitting around on the sidelines watching. I don't know, but
Yeah, when I say reps, you have obviously inside run, your 7-on-7. There's so many periods that they spread out and they send guys to groups and whatnot. But when you come together a team,
that's what okay.
say
That's
they,
what I'm saying. That's
yeah,
what I
let's say
meant.
they have 20 team reps, got to give them five. I would say five.
Yeah. So sorry.
I
So
would say,
in terms of, throwing football practice,
but like 7 on
QB2,
inside run, working with the ones,
yeah.
rotating, doing
But in
different
terms
periods.
of 11 on 11, first team versus Scout D, it's just one of those things that I don't think happens as much as
We,
people think.
yeah, I mean, so we did 20 plays to end. Let's just throw out that generic number. I mean, we would always make sure we gave him at least five, literally five. Hey, get him in there and script those ones for him, especially at a couple. I've coached with a couple of Hall of Fame junior college coaches, and they always did that as well. Scripted plays that quarterback is really good at, and make sure that you just rep those like crazy.
Yeah.
If Notre Dame's not doing that, I think they're definitely going to do a lot more this year. When
Yeah.
you have a 6-year quarterback, I would expect the two to get a lot this year.
Yeah. I remember my senior year of high school, I never would want my, number two receiver behind me at X getting any reps. Like,
Yeah,
no, like I want all of them. I want every single rep that I can, because if I let you get a rep and then they call my number and it's not thrown to me, or it's thrown to you
yep.
instead of me, I'm gonna be pissed. But quick thoughts, Tim. Tyler Buckner to Alabama. I don't think we've done much content on that YouTube wise. Just thoughts on that fit, or
Yeah,
general thoughts on that.
yeah. I mean, I look at it as, I mean, literally, I go back. I just go back to say January 1st. Obviously, he thought he was going to be the quarterback. Obviously, he had told him that they were going to bring someone in, and then once it's obviously Sam Hartman. He was like, all right, I'm going to play spring ball, see what happens. I got my Gator Bowl experience. I've been here 2 years. Let's see if I can beat him out. And then I look at it kind of like, you know, if your boss, I keep using this analogy. If your boss brings someone in to replace you, are you sticking around? Really? I mean, seriously, you're going to start shopping around. You're going to start throwing out feelers. You're going to start seeing what other type of job you could get. So if Joe Smith comes in to replace Mike Singer, is Mike Singer going to be sticking around, 6 months from now? No, you're going to be looking around. And I think that's what Tyler did. And he went to the most comfortable place on earth, which is probably not the most comfortable as Saban breathing down your neck.
Right.
But with Tommy Reese, Tommy Reese has been watching him play football, since 2017, 18, whatever it is, correct? So
Sure.
long relationship. And I think it says a lot about what happened at Alabama, those quarterbacks and whatnot. Alabama is loaded. I keep hearing people are like saying, "Oh, it's a down year." I've seen 3 different mock drafts that have them 5 to 6 first round dudes next year. They are stacked all over
Yeah.
the place. They just need a quarterback, and they just need someone to hand off, deliver the ball, because they got guys all over the place. And it's competition. What's it matter to Nick Saban, right? If Buckner doesn't win it, people will probably rip Buckner or say Reese, blah, blah, blah. Saban don't care. He's best player is going to win. And that's the way I think it's going to be down there.
Tommy's been there for 2 months.
Yeah, a couple months exactly.
Do you think it's like, man, he's just got there and he's already got one of Notre Dame's quarterbacks? Do you think there's any of, like, do you feel any of that? Like, man, you shouldn't go get your alma mater's quarterback like that? Or is it like,
recruiting Tyler behind the scenes, so to speak?
I'm not saying that.
No,
but if that's a part of it, then that would not be good.
Yeah. I've heard this discussion like, oh, it's tampering. I mean, does Sam Hartman not talk to Notre Dame before he hit the portal? It's like, come on, people, get real. Once again, I go back to what Jurkovec. Phil Jurkovec leaves BC. He's signing with Pitt the next day. He had never talked to Pitt, correct? It's like, come on. All these guys, all these main names, they're talking to people. You know, especially his mom and dad. They've known Tommy Reese for, 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. I'm sure they could call him to get some advice. But the tampering thing, Tommy Reese is at Alabama. What's he care about Notre Dame? Seriously, he's at Alabama, right? He's trying to win games. He has a new boss.
He cares about Notre Dame a lot.
I believe he cares. Obviously, he's played quarterback there. He's won games there. He's coached there. He's gone to playoffs. You know, I mean, the 3 championship games, you go 12, 18, and 20. He's been a part of all of them. You know, when you look at the playoffs here in the last 10 years at Notre Dame, of course he cares. But at the same time, he's got to make a name for himself, and that name is at Alabama. And he goes through his spring football, and Nick Saban's like, let's just keep finding competition. And he's available. He wants to leave Notre Dame, which probably goes back to that spring performance that was just atrocious. It's like, that was bad. And he was probably gone that day already, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hear quickly from sponsors real quick before we move into some recruiting talk. Got some good stuff, so don't go anywhere, folks. But we will hear from our friends over at Rogue Shop. It's the husband and wife outfit, as Mr. Rogue and his wife Shar are craft cannabis farmers who specialize in small batch sustainable plant medicine, a true holistic type of small business. They farm and grow everything themselves and do everything by hand. Their website to visit is rogueshop.com, ROGUE shop.com. They sell everything from CBD, THC, edibles, tinctures, smokables, bath salts, pain creams, topicals, vapes, sandals, soaps, and so much more. Their website has a 24/7 chat function where customers can ask the owners any questions that they may have. Check out rogueshop.com if you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, anxiety, stress, and you can use the promo code. Let me pull it up on the screen for our audience here. One word, Bloom and Gold. That will get you 10% off your order. So please do head over to rogueshop.com if you're interested and use that promo code Blue and Gold. All right, Tim. So our next topic is something that has kind of been interesting. I teased it at the beginning of the show. It was in regards to, it was in our thread on their message board about Micah Gilbert committing. And you were kind of being like, mentioning plan B, plan C regarding him and Canyon. Can you just explain?
I was, I guess I was poking the bear. I knew Singer would go fishing in on that one, but no, I mean, it's recruiting, correct? So when you're recruiting, you go pretty much in phases. And now that I've kind of looked at Notre Dame recruiting as almost, 20 month cycles. You go from pot of gold all the way to the next, recruiting class. Okay. So it's a long cycle, correct? So Notre Dame throws out their first offers. Let's say it's phase 1. You call it plan A, plan B, whatever you want to do. But it technically is the first phase. You follow recruiting. These are the elite dudes. These are some dudes. These are the best of the best. Notre Dame is going after these guys. Notre Dame wants to win a national championship. You're not going to win a national championship, Mike, unless you get some of these dudes away from Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, whoever. So Notre Dame is fishing for those guys. And then you start to see what happens. You get your spring visits, your winter visits, after pot of gold, whatever it is. You get guys coming up for the spring game, kind of like this year. Guys, you got a lot of 25 guys came up who got pot of gold offers. Start seeing what Notre Dame is like. Heck, you had a guy come back twice 2 weeks in a row. the tight end. And then you start seeing who doesn't visit, which kind of tends, as you know, in recruiting, that means those guys probably aren't interested, correct?
Okay.
Some guys are, some aren't. And then you throw out a few more offers, which they did this year with the Vegas kid, Gilmer out of Chaminade, down in SoCal, maybe another one or two I lost track of. And then so you got this whole cycle, Mike, pot of gold through the season,
Okay.
through January 1st, and you have one wide receiver commit. It's the Chicago guy, it's the local guy. And how much, and you're starting to obviously, I mean, you report on this all the time, not feeling good with so-and-so, not feeling good with the St. Louis Catholic kids or some of these other Southern guys. And then all of a sudden it looked like they were going to get Gilmer out of Southern Cal. And then boom, he's dropped after the Chaminade coaches visited camp. And then you get these offers that come out to Gilbert was February and Canyon was March. So that's a year later.
So what's your point?
My point is, it's like, I love the message board because it's like, oh my God, Notre Dame, look at all the guys are getting stuck. He just gets whoever he wants. And I'm like, this is just me now.
Well, no one gets whoever they want. Saban doesn't get everyone he wants. So
he gets a lot of guys he wants, Mike.
Not everyone.
Well, there's no such thing as everything. You don't get everything you want in this world. There's no such thing.
I'm just going off what you said.
There's no such thing as everything. Okay. But Notre Dame can't get a couple. You can't get a few of these guys. So they obviously had to reevaluate, refocus, whatever buzzword you want to use. And the last two commits at the wide receiver position, Mike, are what? The last two offers that they gave out. So I just found, me personally, I found that interesting.
So do you think they should not offer any other guys and just?
Well, they had to offer guys, Mike, because they were losing out on the first 20 plus they threw out.
But it's kind of semantic on lose out. Did they offer and not land the guy? Yeah, but do they also say, wow, we like Isaiah Canyon a lot better than these other recruits?
So, okay, this is my favorite point right here. I love that. I love this talking point. So Stuckey's from his high school. He's from his region, correct? Okay. Stuckey coaches at Notre Dame all last season, goes through a whole recruiting period, all that. And then they don't offer the guy till March. So they didn't hear about him until when? All of a sudden they get a win.
Atlanta Under Armour camp, the kid went nuts.
At what?
Atlanta Under Armour camp.
Exactly, and that's fine. So, but he's a good football player. You and I have talked about it. We've done a video. I have no problem with these guys. They're good football players. But this idea of, oh, Notre Dame's killing it. Well, what about the other 20? Mike, seriously, would they have gotten it? Let me ask you this question. If Ryan Wingo and McClellan, the two Catholic kids from St. Louis, as Notre Dame starting to build a heck of a foundation down there, if they commit and they want to come to Notre Dame, does Notre Dame get Isaiah Canyon? Do they get Micah Gilbert? Of course not, because they've already loaded up on their guys. So that's the whole thing. So obviously they missed out on guys. You got to come back around because you have to get wide receivers in this class. What wide receivers have they been on since as I like to call it, the first wave? None. It's been dry out there, and that's just all I'm doing is just talking and having fun with people on the message board. It's not a diss to Stuckey because I love Stuckey. You know that he's a Dabo guy, so I love Stuckey. But to say, this Notre Dame gets, it's always the moniker. Anytime someone commits to Notre Dame, I always feel this tone of, oh my God, they just got who they want. They got their board. He was so high up on their board. Yeah, he is now 16 months later.
All right. I agree with some of what you're saying. Especially, I don't like every recruit we get is a 5-star. He's a hashtag all caps dude. And I also don't like, the opposite, the sky is falling. I don't like, I lose my mind when there's reports about a player going to a different school and then it's, Notre Dame cooled on him. It's like Notre Dame was recruiting him for 2 years. And then, because they may have been turned down at the last minute, now I never wanted him anyway. Like that really pisses me off. So I get a lot of what you're saying, but The amount of craps I give about when the player was offered, I mean, Tim, I do not give any. I don't care plan A, plan B, plan C. I'm gonna give you just a few names,
Perfect.
Mr. Tim Hyde.
I love
Okay.
this. I love this.
Kenny Minchie, I think everyone's pretty excited
Sure.
about that get, right? Pretty exciting. Blue chip again to your, the all important blue
Hey,
chip percentage.
yeah, it's called stacking players. Stacking players.
All right. Got his offer July of his junior year. July. Pretty late. Pretty late, Tim.
They had to.
Remember, Canyon and Gilbert, February of their junior year. So they already wrapped up their junior season, right?
Mhm.
Junior year in high school. So Kenny Minchie, July. Okay. How about Jaden Greathouse? December of his junior year. So he was late, right? You've known Jaden Greathouse since his freshman year. That's when he was dominant even as a freshman.
Sure.
Don't even offer until December. Wow, that's like a plan G, Tim. All right, let's just move on. Jeremiah Love, how about this one? February 28 of his junior year. So at the end of the month, same time. But yeah, well, it wasn't really that big of a get because it was February of his junior year that he got his offer. I'm just doing research, Tim. How
But you're
about
hold
Emil
on, hold on.
Wagner? How about Emil Wagner? November
You're,
of his junior year.
you're,
Okay. Okay. Not one of the plan A guys for the class of 2022. Ends up a 5-star. Tim Hyde loves him to death.
oh, he's a stud.
Plan D though. Plan D. So can't celebrate it. Eli Raridan, February, junior year. Ben Morrison, February of junior year. And I'm going to end with the two best ones, Tim, just to prove my point that I don't give two craps about when they get their offer, if they were plan A, B, C, D, or F. Audric Estime, 4 days
Yes.
before National Signing Day. Notre Dame's, you know, elite running back, one of the top, top 4 or 5 players on the team. December of his senior year, the literal last
The last
option
day.
they had is one of their best players on their team. And I will end with Joe Alt, May of junior year, not a first option. So this is the thing. Joe Alt kind of just became a late bloomer, which you love late bloomers.
And there's a handful
Isaiah
in this class.
Canyon played quarterback during his junior year. Like, it's not like Chancey Stuckey can just know about every single player in his hometown. Like Canyon went nuts at that camp. And we read the article that, I did with Charles Power, the expert reaction story, where you're quoted in it as well, Mr. Hyde, might I add. And Power's listing some of the numbers, the testing numbers posted, like, for when you consider his size and his testing numbers, they're nuts. So this is new information. New information is really important in the recruiting process to make a guy who is plan C according to the timeline now a plan A, and then your original plan A guys are now plan C or D. And I will also add the whole best of the best thing. Just because you offered first, again, that does not mean that they're the best of the best. That just means that those are the players that Notre Dame was able to identify early, and then you have guys who come along like Isaiah Canyon later in the process. Audric Estime, his senior season was crazy, blew up like later in the process. Like, those are real things, Mr. Hyde.
Okay. I mean, and everything you're talking about is like 2 years ago or so. So I'm talking about this class. I'm focusing on now. I'm focusing
Well, I'm
on.
just proving
Hold
I
on.
don't like your plan A, B, C stuff.
Well, of course not, because you're going backwards and and finding a few guys. I'm only talking about the wide receiver now, and I look at this as This is Marcus Freeman's basically third year at Notre Dame, right? The recruiting coordinator, Chad Bowden's in his second year as a recruiting coordinator. So they have obviously been working, Mike. They've been identifying guys. I mean, my God, you posted today they offered a freshman quarterback, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? So obviously they're identifying guys ahead of time. So they are throwing out offers. Their organization is better in this 2025 up and coming class than it was in 23 and on as it moves forward. So if you go out and, the whole point is, why did they offer Estime a couple days before signing day? Because they lost out on guys. That was the COVID year. First off, you're bringing up half of the COVID class, which is a complete train wreck.
Brought up 2 guys in that class.
Alt, Estime, whoever else you brought up. But anyway, but we know why they estimate, because they needed running backs and they lost out on a bunch of guys. But that's recruiting. I fully understand that. I only brought up the 2 wide receivers because everyone just, that was just me having some fun on the board. Like, oh, I always hear, once again, the hype. But as I say, would they have gotten Micah Gilbert had they gotten a bunch of the other wide receivers they obviously wanted over the last year? And then what I found truly fascinating, I'm going back now, Mike, just focusing on skill guys. Because Notre Dame, we all talk about championships, right? You want to win a national title. Well, are you going to win a national title if you're recruiting guys that have 0 offers from the big 3? Buckeyes, Bulldogs, Roll Tide? I mean, seriously, are you? Can you win a national title if you don't get the guys that they're getting?
Like Drew Pine. Like Drew Pine had that Bama offer.
Did he visit Alabama? I'm curious. Did he visit Alabama? Did he take an official visit to Alabama? That's the next thing. Is visits are the true indicating of recruiting, is it not? Visits. If you don't visit a school, are you going to sign at that school? No. But once again, Mike, you bring up someone from like 4 years ago. I'm talking about now, for crying out loud. And it's fascinating. Notre Dame's offered check this out, Mike. Notre Dame has offered 24 wide receivers in this class. 24. 17 have an offer from Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Notre Dame's over 17 with those guys. So that's my whole point when it comes to recruiting, is just starting to look at these guys. They are losing out on a lot of elite dudes. So whether it's plan B, plan C, whatever, they did have to offer these guys really late in the process, did they not? Yes. That's my whole point. Did they sign them? Are they good football players? Yes, they are. I have no issues with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have better players than the other schools, sure. But what do you want Notre Dame to not offer those guys so that they have a better batting percentage? Like, I don't know.
With Notre Dame, I mean, what Matthews visited Notre Dame for a game, the stud out of Georgia.
Mike Matthews,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Mike Matthews is a stud. Caleb Downs, obviously, by the way, Caleb Downs probably going to start at Alabama this year. So when I said he was the best player, make sure I get a pat on the back when he starts. But
yeah, I love that kid. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's unbelievable. His spring, but we're going off the rails there. But what was I just saying? Who did I just mention? I was talking about.
I don't know. This is why you can't listen to.
No. The Mike Matthews.
The guy's not right.
Hold on. Mike Matthews visits for a game, correct? Do you think he was at the Clemson game? Mike Matthews, 5-star, one of the premier players in America. Notre Dame's going all in to get this guy, correct? Come up here. You're going to be our difference maker at wide receiver. He never came back. Yet, had he said, I want to come to Notre Dame, this is my whole point of, had he wanted to come to Notre Dame, we wouldn't have heard of some of these other guys, because Notre Dame was going after those big fish and get some of those guys. So it's just not happening right now. Well, so you've got to find players, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Mike Matthews, when he visited Notre Dame, was before he had like 10 offers. So those big time schools hadn't offered yet. So maybe if he would have committed to Notre Dame and then those other schools did an offer, and then then Mike Matthews is just not a guy with big offers. So why are we taking Mike Matthews?
Watch the film. Watch his film. He's freakish. So many of these guys are.
That's a great point. Watch the film. Sure. So let's watch the film and not care about when the offer went out. Let's watch the film and not care about 3 or 4 star for the blue chip ratio, which I like the blue chip ratio, but I don't value it as much as you do.
I just look at it as a number because it's obviously a telltale.
It's an interesting data point.
It's a lot of telltale. But I'm also of this thing when and this is just Tim Hyde speaking here, Mike, when I'm constantly hearing, oh, this guy's an elite recruiter, this guy's this, I'm like, okay, well, where are the elite recruits, Mike?
I mean, a little much. I see on Twitter.
Okay, that's
people tweeting out, oh, Tyler Buckner he's going to win 3 national championships. All right, that's a little much. But people are like, yeah. I have some of these tweets saved. I'm petty at the time. I'm never actually going to do anything about it because I see stuff like this. How about in the 2021 class? Some of those recruits were like, man, this is the class to bring us a national title, and we're going to have the number 1 recruiting class in the country. I'm just looking at it being like, man, there's a lot of bus in that class. So that's why I try not to be the overreaction guy. Like, I'm not going to,
and I hear you.
About Steve Angeli and Joe Alt.
some guy in the chat said Hyde's the guy that sneezes on the birthday cake. That was awesome. And I love that. I love that. But my whole point is obvious. It is nothing at all bad about Stuck. He's working his tail off. He is. He's reshaped that entire wide receiver room, which is a train wreck for crying out loud. Heck, the best one they've signed the last couple of years is going to Ohio State to redshirt to play DB. That's the best guy they've signed.
Yeah.
That tells you how much work he's had to do. But when you get these 3 this year, the 4 last year, Mike, there's only one player out of these 7 that have an offer from the big 3, and it's Rico Flores, which I found that fascinating. I had to go back and look at that. Even Rico, darn well, even though he had offers, he was a plan B for Georgia and Ohio State, wasn't
right.
he?
So now you know what you're doing. You're picking up the goalpost and you're starting to move it.
I'm not moving him. I'm looking at who offers who. I think that's always.
But now you're saying it's plan B, so that offer's not as it's not as
impactful. It totally is. I just said he's the only one. He's the only one is Rico Flores.
But
7.
I mean, we can. So I keep bringing up older. So I've been bringing up players in the 2021, 22 classes to be like, we have a little bit more data on those guys now. Like, if you look at the 2021 class, Rocco Spindler, I think, had offers from
everybody.
He had Ohio State.
Oh, he had everybody. Alabama, everybody. I've done all the O-line guys.
All right. There's Alabama and Ohio State. So
all those guys.
They go like Notre Dame's signing players with a lot of these offers. Buckner had all the big offers. Colsey did. I think Rubio did. Kane Barong definitely did. Philip Riley had a lot. I mean, like Caleb Johnson, So to me, Tim, this whole discussion it just boils down to the plan A, plan B, your blue chip ratio, the offer list, the rankings, all data points.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they are. For us to come to opinions and conclusions on these different things, you just have to use them all as data points, and that's it.
And then for me, obviously, a guy who's followed Notre Dame my whole life, it's like, trying to get them, trying to, root Notre Dame on, to get it. And it's like, is it going to happen? This is something I want to talk to you about down the road in another show is you've kind of started to talk about this, like, what can Notre Dame go into the South, right? Can they go down there and pull some upsets? Is it possible? And maybe there's some fans out there that thought it would be possible with Freeman, and has it really happened yet? And that's
well, let's take a look. Let's take a look.
And I guess for me, I am just so hung up when it comes to skill guys, and that's the spot that I really look at is the skill. Oh yeah, I've already done in this class. It's, believe it or not, Larson. Larson's
Clemson, Bama.
He's got. I got it right here. I just circled it right here. Yeah, he's got Ohio State, Bama. Williams has all 3 of, when I call them the big 3, people probably hate that now, but that's just what I'm calling it when it comes to recruiting, because they've dominated recruiting. And then obviously CJ's got Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, but he's not from the South. You were talking about going into the South and pulling.
Yeah. But even pulling guys, even getting guys, Mike, with those offers, because those guys will go nationally now. Alabama doesn't care where you're at. Georgia's going into, the West now and starting to pull guys. So Bowers, obviously the St. John Bosco safety. So, and that's the other thing I'm looking at is just who's starting to get these offers. Where are they coming from? Just having fun with it.
Yeah. Southern kid. Does Texas count for, it's not Southeast.
I think Texas is going to count for the future because they're going to the SEC.
Oh yeah. I would count.
You got that SEC money, that SEC hype. If Notre Dame's going into Texas and getting a guy, which they did with Great House, James with A&M, Texas offers, that is going to be big.
Osbury, Bama, LSU, Ohio State. That's a
Rico Flores had all 3.
Pendleton, Clemson. I think, they definitely have a lot of big recruiting wins, that's for sure. But again, data points.
Yeah, no, and it's fun, and that's what I do when I'm in a testing period and I got 55 minutes to sit there and relax and push buttons for the kids and do a little research, have fun with it. But that's all it is having fun, seeing what it is.
No,
You
Tim,
know,
this is life or death stuff, man. This is very, very important.
it is for ND fans. 12 Saturdays in the fall, so
And every Wednesday night, pretty
every
much.
Wednesday night, yes.
So, all right. The last thing before we get out of here, I just felt like we should talk about Dallas Golden, a class of 2025 listed as a safety. Notre Dame's recruiting as a corner. This is the recruit I mentioned earlier in the show
Mhm.
that I was, in a little what I call a work vacation. So I was down in Tampa and got to see Dallas Golden, Berkeley Prep High School, a school that is, that Notre Dame was not able to land Keon Keely at, but he was on campus for the blue gold game, and then I got to see him. I think it was this past Thursday. Tim, have you been able to watch his tape? Any thoughts on him? This is some film we're showing on YouTube. It was like an offensive day, so I don't know. I figured I'd put this together, for YouTube audience so we can watch some of his tape. But any thoughts on this big time 2025 target for Notre Dame, a top 100 player?
No, he's hard to watch because of where he's from. So
Oh, Berkeley Prep.
yeah. So I've watched so much Keon Keely tape, over the last 18 months, and you see those colors watching him. He's a heck of an athlete. I mean, it's a great recruiting area. That Tampa area is really good high school football. That I remember reading an article that Tampa Catholic, that whole region, how many guys they sent D1 out of that whole section is awesome. But he's an athlete. This would go to my point. This would be an upset. Notre Dame goes down there, pulls him out of the South with all the Southern schools, are going to come all over him. He's a freakish athlete. And this is the thing going back to Notre Dame getting a handful of these guys when they can, and making them just amazing athletes. Because once again, talking about the extended playoffs, you're going to have to need these guys because you're going to play. Notre Dame gets in, they're going to play an SEC team, first round, second round. It's going to happen. So you got to be able to match these guys with the speed and the athleticism. And he definitely has all of that.
Yeah. And just talking to him and different people at Berkeley, I think Notre Dame is in pretty good position here. I think Clemson, who, when you keep mentioning your big three, it's a very recent big three.
And I use the big three in recruiting. So that's what I've been using recruiting.
Okay, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the AP poll. It's more or less
Bama, Georgia, Ohio State. That's a
yeah. They've been really good recruiting. Obviously, you just watch the NFL draft. Holy moly, it's like, let's don't get into that. Notre Dame 5 the last 2 years, Georgia 25. That right there tells you all you need to know. So, but no, Clemson. Believe me, Mike, I have a list. I love to look at Clemson offers as well with Notre Dame guys because those guys, Clemson's never been, as you know, a traditional top 10, top 5. They've only had a few. They'll go find some of those hidden gems down in the South, and they'll go back and kick butt for Dabo up there.
All right. There's a comment here I just wanted to bring up before we get out of here. Derek says, how come you're not talking about Cam Williams? He's smooth in and out of his breaks. The tape don't lie, and finally got his 5th star. That's saying something because they don't like to. Derek, first of all, appreciate the comment here in the super chat earlier. I've been seeing a lot of comments about Cam Williams, and
Cam Williams.
We love Cam Williams. Kid's a superstar.
Oh my God,
he's great on the field. Honestly, I like him more off the field. I like just texting with him is just like texting with a buddy to me. But this is the thing that really
real quick. I mean, Mike, he was on our show last year and was
on our show after he committed.
Yes.
But this is the thing that I think folks need to understand. Okay. So for YouTube audience, we're looking at his rankings, right? I mean, number 33 nationally by On3, 54 24/7, 53 nationally ESPN, 42 Rivals, right? So it's like, man, he's a borderline 5-star by all of these, right? And again, this is just factual information. I'm not like trying to diss Cam Williams. I love Cam Williams to death. This is just me talking to fans because I see this all the time. Like, oh, Brendan Vernon was a 5-star and then he commits to Notre Dame as 4-star. Like, there is a difference between each of these individual rankings on 3, 24/7, ESPN, and Rivals, and then what On3 and 24/7 has as their, kind of their industry ranking. That's what On3 calls it. I think it's the 24/7 composite over there. So if we actually look at this profile, right, he's a 5-star according to the composite. I have no idea how 24/7 gets their composite ranking.
Yes.
On 3 literally explains it. It's 35% on 3. It used to be unweighted, but now they weighted it because Rivals and ESPN just struggle. I mean, ESPN really struggles. They had Brandon Davis Swain listed as a Notre Dame commitment for like 3 months after the fact. So on 3, 35%, 24/7, 35%, Rivals 20, and ESPN 10 for their weighting. So I mean, he's
So
a
it's
4-star, but
yeah,
it's like their composite just kind of, but no individual ranking is saying he's a
he's a 5-star.
5-star.
Exactly.
It's the composite that I guess just comes together and says
So
it's a 5-star. I don't get it. But again, if you just go off of a rating, not a 5-star. So this is more instructional purposes for people to understand this because we've been getting these comments a lot on YouTube and people just don't understand it. So that's why that is.
thank you for that, Mike, because I keep seeing this as well. I'm like, what do you mean a 5-star? He's a 4-star and everywhere. 5 stars are top 32. He's not 32 anywhere. The closest is on 3. Everybody, I always love the digs against on 3.
Yeah, on 3's got to rank the highest, but
yeah, Notre Dame's highest for so many guys except for CJ Carr, but on 3 stinks. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think on 3, I think Power stinks for that ranking. I disagree with them all the time on it. Every single time I talk to Charles Power, I think I end the conversation with, hey.
So we were talking earlier, Mike, about Isaiah Canyon. Who's the only recruiting service that has him nationally ranked? It's one. It's on 3 is the only. It's so
well.
funny.
No, I think that's mean. But
top
got his offer in February of his junior year, so.
But isn't he top 100 now? He got the Notre Dame bump, Mike. Is that the bump? Isn't that the bump? Is that going to be the new hashtag to get people riled up? The Notre Dame bump.
So there you go. Yeah, 24/7 3-star. This Rivals actually has him at a 3 stars. Hasn't updated yet. ESPN top, nationally. But yeah, on 3 loves him. So yeah. I agree, Derek, that talent wise, Cam Williams 5-star, but again, we're just going straight.
Yeah, see his senior film and see how we go. I mean, that's the thing is, none of these things are finalized till after the second signing day in February. So when they throw in the All-Star, see how he does in the All-Star game. If he goes down there and dominates, yeah, he's going to move up. If he has an All-American, butt kicking season as a senior and goes out 1,500 yards and dominates, yeah, he's going to move up. So
no, don't say that because you don't know. You can't predict. You can't predict anything with rankings, folks. I'm telling you, because Cam Williams might do that, but then there might be more receivers that they like. Well, you don't. It's not black and white in the rankings. Data points, folks. That's all.
And real quick on the CJ Carr, let's get into this maybe one night because it is with the. There's some really good quarterbacks. I don't think there's a lot of fans that have watched some of these quarterbacks. There's some darn good quarterbacks in this class. So
but he's not 12. He's not 12.
Oh, he's not 12. I don't think he's top.
In my opinion, but like you said, there's a lot of good quarterbacks.
Is he a top?
How many of us?
Right? So
how many of us that have lost our minds about him being ranked 12 have actually watched the other quarterbacks?
I actually have. On the last one because
I know you do at work, but
yeah, exactly. Well, fans started to get into it, and I started watching some of these guys. I'm like, there's some really good football players at quarterback. I don't think he's 12. I don't think he's a 5-star. I don't. When I look at potential and arm strength and things of that nature, accuracy, yeah. So I like to throw he's in that 5 to 7 range. I would say.
Susan says you're not a 5-star unless you're Tim Hyde's plan.
Pot of gold. Why do we follow it, right?
Because those are the guys. You can't land anyone else but the pot of gold. All right.
I love it.
Tim, I think we're good there, man, to wrap up
tonight's
show. Yeah, fun show. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you just tuned in the past 10 minutes or so, hit that rewind. Go to the front of the show, the beginning of the show, and watch it because we had a lot of good quarterback discussion. Looking back at the 2021 class, I thought that's always a fascinating discussion as well. So, that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Please do hit that thumbs up before you get out of here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content and head over to blueandgold.com. $29.99 to unlock access until the start of the season. Appreciate you, folks. And as always, we will catch you next time.